Welcome to She Sound Off podcast and YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mystique Moon. Welcome back, little stars. If you are listening or watching for the very first time, thank you guys for coming to my channel and to my and listening to my podcast. Subscribe. And if you are listening on any of the podcast streaming platforms, go over to YouTube and so you can put a face to the voice of She Sound Off podcast. All right. So if you guys see me looking down, I came prepared this time. Came prepared. Okay. So I'm gonna just get right into it on this episode. We're gonna sound off to who is Mystique Moon. Who is Mystique Moon? Who is this person? Who is this person that used to be the host, Kita, and now is the host, Mystique Moon? So there's a very special reason why I wanted to go ahead and do this episode of Who is Mystique Moon. So when I first started podcasting, I would introduce myself as your host, Kita. And I was very much so Kita in those moments. As I started to evolve, grow mentally, just everything just started to expand. There were parts of me that I was being introduced to that I never met. You know, I feel like as we all go through these periods in our life where we're just growing, we're learning so many things about who we are, our likes and our dislikes, we're healing things in our past, you know, we often expand into not new people, because you're still you, who you are, the core of you is still you, but you know, it's like a caterpillar and a butterfly. You know, like you come out of your shell and you just morph into this awesome, spectacular, phenomenal person. Sometimes you got to put a name to that person. So that's what I did. I'm still Kita, Nikita. And then sometimes people back in my younger times, you know, me and my friend had this joke about me being named Catwoman because, you know, we were crazy. And when we used to go out, I used to take on this whole character or this whole persona as the character Catwoman. Because as y'all know, I'm a big nerd, okay? But anyway, so Mystique Moon and those names are all extensions of who I am. They're all extensions of who I am. There's bits of me here as Nikita. That's the name that I was birthed with. There's bits of me here with Kita, which is like my nickname, and everybody, my friends, my family call me Kita, you know. And then Catwoman is like my alter ego, basically. And then you got this new arrival, Mystique Moon. So I want to talk about who she is and why I chose the name, okay? So how did I meet Mystique Moon? Well, when I first began my spiritual journey, it was during a moment in my life where it was extremely difficult for me. As you know, I've told the story so many times. And, you know, by the way, if you have a story to tell, you tell your story as many times as you need to tell it. Don't let nobody try to discourage you from owning your life, owning your story. Because if your story got you through a really tough battle, it's yours, okay? So own it. But anyway, I was going through a really difficult time in my life at that time. And, you know, I was awakening. My mind was awakening. My body was awakening. Everything about me was awakening. So I began my spiritual journey through this tumultuous time, and everything about me, like, it began to like shift. I don't want to say there was like a shift in the paradigm in my life at that time, because things that used to look a certain way looked different to me. My mind just thought completely, it started to elevate, expand, you know. So I started to realize the contrast in myself, who I was, what I went through, the things that I suffered through, and then who I am becoming, you know. And I started thinking about, like, you know, I'm still me. I'm still me, like I said, in the core, but I'm expanding. I'm learning so many different things about myself. I'm evolving into someone different, you know. although I still take on those characteristics, I still have a lot of the likes and I still make some of the same mistakes, because life is about learning. It's about growing. And just because you've reached this place in your life, that does not mean that you will not make mistakes. That does not mean that you will not regress. And it does not mean that you have to beat yourself down every time that you make a decision that was who in the vibration of who you used to be. All it means is you are more aware of the things that the decisions that you make, you know? So I started to realize that I was evolving into a different person. Even when I did make these mistakes, my process of it was different, you know? I stopped holding in anger and resentment towards myself. I started to be kinder to myself and forgive myself for making these mistakes. Though they were definitely difficult, what I used to do before is I just used to, you know, hold in that anger and just sit in that, wallow in that self-pity. I'm growing and evolving. It's like, okay, I made a mistake. Take the lesson out of it. I didn't do that before. Before, I would just make the same mistake over. And then I would make excuses for myself, you know? I noticed that Mystique Moon does not do that. So I decided, as I'm going through this transformation and I'm noticing all these things, I'm like, you know what? This side of me, I'll just say it like that, this side of me, she deserves a name. You know, when you talk about names are very important. When you're about to have a child, you go through these motions about names. You want them to be individuals. You want them to be different, I guess I'm trying to say. You want names to have a ring to it. You definitely want it to be a unique name, but you want it to have meaning. So I'm like, okay, I want to name this part of me. As I'm beginning this new journey, I'm moving to a new state. I'm going to be meeting new people, and I'm going to be, you know, just in this whole realm of newness. I want a name that resonates with that same thing. So, it was a part of me like taking back my power as well. Saying, okay, I'm going to assign myself a name, even though you can still call me Keita. You can still call me Nikita. You cannot call me Catwoman. Okay, that's alter ego, unless you see me acting as such. But, you know, it was a way for me to take back my power. You know, every time someone calls your name, there's a feeling of dignity behind it if you like your name. Because, honey, some people got, no shade, but some people got, their parents was on some type of something when they named them, because they know damn well they shouldn't have been naming them kids some of them names, but we ain't even gonna get into that. But so I decided, you know, I wanted to assign a name, and it wasn't necessarily about changing my identity or anything like that. It was just something that I needed to do, kind of like to close the deal of this new transition. That's the best way I can describe it. So to break down Mystique Moon, to break it down, first name Mystique, last name Moon, okay? So the funny thing about the name Mystique is, again, I'm a super nerd when it comes down to anything superhero-ish, anything superpower, anything Marvel. I'm a Marvel fanatic, and I will always love Marvel comics. I will always love Marvel Studios. That's just me. I love it. So growing up, I would watch the cartoons and stuff, and you know, we all got our favorite characters or whatever. My favorite character in X-Men was always Mystique. At the time, I didn't understand why I liked Mystique. You know, she didn't have because she could fight, right? She physically was a fighter, and she was kind of like a computer whiz a little bit, where she can hack into things and get information as she needed. But Mystique Moon had this Mystique from X-Men had this ultimate power where she was able to transform. Her DNA was able to shift into anybody she wanted. She was able to look like anybody she wanted to. That was a part of one of her biggest powers. And it was a really powerful power. Like, to be able to change into somebody else, you know, I thought that was pretty dope. Now, here's the thing. I could have picked I could have fancied any character in X-Men. I could have liked Jubilee. You know, she was a pretty dope character. Actually, she was my second favorite one. But then I could have been like, okay, Storm, she has the power to manipulate the weather and stuff. And to this day, I feel like she had the dopest physical power in terms of like being able to manipulate anything. But then, you know, you had Jean Grey. And Jean Grey could practically do anything, but her powers were always limited because look, why am I giving y'all a X-Men female character breakdown over here? But yeah, so Jean Grey, she could do pretty much anything. And I'm like, yeah, these characters are cool, but it was something about Mystique that always held my attention. And the crazy thing is, I didn't know until literally just recently that when I was even younger, this has always been a part of me. So she had the ability to choose to be anybody she was. She can morph into anybody. And in the newer movies, she would hide who she really was with these different characters or these different people, these different faces. She was able to hide the original person or her original look. And she did that because she wasn't very proud of who she was. So for me, it resonates with me a lot because so many times I've wanted to just be somebody else. I wanted to be able to shift and morph into somebody else because of these expectations of, you know, myself. My ego played a really big part in that because my ego was always told me that, you know, you should be somebody else. You should be this. I would look to other people for validation and as like confirmation for me of who I should be. So it resonated with me, and I did that even up to my adulthood, where I loved who I was. I was in love with me, but the core of me, I didn't understand who I was. I didn't get it. You know, I would make these rash decisions. I was always anti on the go. You know, it was just so many things that I didn't appreciate. At the time, I didn't know my worth. You know, and as I was choosing the name, Mystique completely came. The first time I decided to do that, Mystique came because it just literally represented the core of my transition. Understanding that me taking back my power, me knowing my worth, now I can be me. Now I can wear my own face. But the name Mystique Moon is a constant reminder that you have the ability, the love for yourself, you have the self-worth to walk in your own skin. And never, ever, ever, ever forget that. So it showed, like, every time I hear the name Mystique, it's like a ring into my ear because it also helps me to understand that I'm constantly evolving. It's going to always be a constant evolution in my life. And that's one thing that we can always depend on, y'all. It's change. Change is inevitable. We're always going to change. So just as Mystique can change into any body she wants to, understanding that you are always going to evolve. You are always going to change. And that kind of, I don't know, it just stuck to me. So what else I got here? Oh, another thing, because I'm over here, I'm over here reading my notes, but I said change is inevitable, and it helps me to embrace that change. So let me break that down real quick. So, understanding that Mystique is a person who would be able to always change, me given that, attaching that name to who I am helps me to embrace the change every time it happened. It helps me to understand that, you know, it's okay. Change is okay. A lot of us were so stuck in our ways and we're so stuck in who we were or who we're trying so hard to reach who we want to become that we don't take, you know, we don't take the change in our life as we should. We don't embrace the changes that we have. And a lot of times it's the most important part of our life when we're going through that changing period. We want to hold on to the things, the people, the activities, the everything. We just want to hold on to so much. So for me, Mystique helps me to understand that, you know, there is always going to be a change. but you can always stand in your truth, stand strong in what you believe in. You can always be yourself, okay? And as I said earlier, Kita, Nikita, Catwoman, Mystique Moon, all those people, all those names are different parts of me, and they will never leave. They will always be here. So y'all, also Mystique gives me a sense of power. You know, the name Mystique, it makes me feel really empowered. I can't really explain to you in words exactly why, but what I will say is it helps me to embrace the natural order of things, and that's a powerful feeling, okay? So that's how I came up and chose, and why I chose the name Mystique. So it has a really, really intimate connection to that. Choosing that name was a very intimate connection to me, and it's more than just what meets the eye. You know, I like to think of myself as a deep thinker. You know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't about what people will say or how people will receive it or anything like that. It was mostly about me owning who I feel I am deep down inside. And it was also serving as a constant reminder to be yourself. All right. So I want to break down the name Moon because that has a really significant attachment as well. So Moon, I always felt a connection to the moon, the constellations, the stars. I don't remember what grade I was in, but I was in school and we took a field trip to this, I don't even know the name of it, but it was this place where they talked about the space and things like that. And we went into this big dome and, you know, it was completely dark. And then you look up and it was showing the constellation. It was talking about it. I think that was the best field trip I've ever had. And this is now years later. And I still remember that day like it was yesterday. I still remember the activities I did, and I've always had a connection to the moon. Not only the moon, I've always had a connection to the stars, just space, the curiosity of it, the mystery of it, you know, and I've always felt a deep, deep connection. And then something about the night always felt safe to me. Now, I don't know. I have yet connect this with my childhood, with, you know, something that happened that connects me to nighttime. But I feel like everybody have, some people are day people, some people are not night people. You know, I think better in the daytime, but I feel happier. I feel complete. I feel safe at night. It's weird. I don't know. This is just how I feel. So I learned to connect myself to the dark side. I ran from the dark part of me. A lot of us probably do or have or will, you know. I ran from the dark side of me for so long. I didn't accept, you know, the things about me that the world wouldn't accept. You know, a lot of us tend to do that. If the world don't accept us as we are, at every part of us, I'm talking the light and the dark, then we don't accept us. And so we run from it, or we deny ourselves. We deny ourselves things that feels natural to us because society told us that it was wrong, or you read it in a book, or you're in a religion that tells you you're not able to be yourself. What feels naturally good to you is wrong. And a lot of us run from that. We run, and we're never ourselves. There's people that has killed themselves, literally ended their own lives because they weren't able to be who they really were to the core of them. The world will beat you down and make you feel like your dark side is bad. That's because those people don't understand what a lot of us people who are woke or awakened, or however you want to, whatever words you want to attach to that, but they have their third eye is opening, meaning they're able to see past this realm, earthly realm, into another dimension. And my third eye is opening, okay? But I understand. So another reason why I decided that Moon would be the perfect name for me is because with me understanding and appreciating and embracing my dark side, I learned to accept it through understanding the principle of polarity, y'all. The principle of polarity explains that everything is dual Everything has poles, or everything has polar opposites, okay? And to understand this in the spiritual world, meaning that spirits and matter are opposite poles of the same thing, of the same thing. So that explains without dark, there's no such thing as light, okay? Without hot, there's no cold. Without up, there's no down. Without in, there's no out. I mean, we can go on and on and on about this, but the point is, polar opposites of something what's natural to us. The polar opposite of everything is the natural order of things. It was created by the higher power, whatever higher power, whatever name you want to attach to it. That was part of the creation. And so when I learned that theory, when I began to understand that, I learned that, well, if we were born or created with this factor, then how could dark be bad? How could the dark side of you be bad if we are the polar opposites of ourselves, right? So I'm gonna say it and break it down like this. You need to learn how to embrace your dark side, because it's necessary for you to live in the best version of you. You were created with both. You were created with light, and you were created with dark. And dark doesn't mean evil, like people try to attach to it, your dark side, your shadow side. It does not mean that you are a horrible person. It does not mean that, you shouldn't accept that part of you. It simply means that you should embrace it. You should learn it. You should conquer it, just like you conquer anything else about yourself. And you should learn how to balance the two, like you balance every other thing in your world. So when I decided to, understand more of who Moon was, Miss Moon, I had to embrace that dark side. Now, that was not easy for me to do. I'm going to tell y'all, I'll be 100% honest. It was not easy for me to do, because for so long I was told that these parts, these desires and things that I had that was related to the dark side of me was bad, okay? Once I started embracing them and began to say, okay, if this is a part of me, then I'm going to learn to love it just like I love the light or the other part of me. Everything started to make sense. I was able to break down certain things in my life that I never knew I understood about myself, okay? And it was all in the name, right? So, I learned to embrace the dark and the light and accept myself and to accept myself on each pole, the light part of me and the dark part of me. And that's where the moon come in, okay? So, and it also reminds me of all aspects of love. The name Moon, it just reminds me of all aspects of love. Now, there is one other reason that I love the name Moon, is because it speaks of illusions. When you look at the moon is about a lot of illusions. And this, I'm telling you, y'all, this is just a reminder for me every single day that the world is what you make it. You create the world in front of you. But you have to be very, very conscious of who you are deep down inside. All this stuff that I have talked about was something that I've never explored in my life until I decided to take a journey through who I really am. And it was going through that journey, which I am constantly, we are constantly expanding, that I'm learning these parts about myself, and I'm loving it. Like, I'm loving who I am, who I'm becoming. And then I also love who I was, because without that part, I never would have gotten here. So I'm enjoying it. So when I hear people call me Mystique Moon, okay, y'all, it just makes me so happy. I can't even explain how happy, because it's like each time I hear it, it helps me remember my transformation. It helps me understand and know that you are growing each and every day. And sometimes I can take that name and I can go back to moments in my life and relate them and say, okay, this is the reason why I did this. That's the reason why I did that. So it's so deep. And I'm learning about things about myself every single day. I'm learning about myself more and more and more. I'm learning how to see before I understood who I really was, all parts of me, I never took accountability. Now I'm learning to heal and take accountability. I'm learning to set boundaries like never before. I didn't even know how to set boundaries. I didn't even know I had the strength in me, or I didn't know my worth that I could set boundaries. But yeah, so I'm learning how to set boundaries. I'm investing in my mental health and my spiritual health. I'm learning how to protect my energy. I'm learning my worth. I'm knowing and walking in my truth. And I'm creating the life that I want. Everything is a slow process. I'm conquering fears and just milestones that I never knew I had the ability to do that. And this is all because I decided to walk in my truth. Every day we evolve like a caterpillar to a butterfly. Every single day. And a lot of us are in our metamorphosis stage. When you choose to embrace that part of you, that's when you will notice things in your life starting to change. Now, understand again that I am still me. I still like to party. I still like to have fun. I still like to do all the things that I've liked to do before. I'm just learning how to do them in a more controlled way that doesn't lower my vibration. But Mystique Moon, I've discovered a lot of new things about me, about the, activities that I like to do. Like before, I would never go camping. I would never go hiking, things like that. I would never sit out in nature. Those are things that it's a must. I must. If I don't get out and ground in nature, y'all, I'm talking about I'll be a hot mess. I'm telling you, I have to ground. I have to go out into nature. I love to plant. I never knew Nikita didn't like to plant. As a matter of fact, fun fact about me, I had a phobia of worms all of my life. Now, dare I say that my planting is a little bit limited because I stay in an apartment, and so I'm doing it from like planting in planting pots and things like that. But there was a time where I couldn't even touch dirt because it was just related. Every time I touched it, I thought about worms. I was very traumatized when I was little of worms, you know what I mean? But it doesn't bother me like it used to. Actually, it doesn't bother me at all. I haven't been faced with a situation where I feel that anxiety because I know what reality is now. You know what I mean? But y'all, I love to journal and I love to read. I never liked to do none of these things before, okay? Until I started embracing this part of me. So, Mystique Moon, I'm loving me. And I wanted to do this episode because as I go on and I grow, my audience grow, my material grow. I have so many things that I'm planning over the next year. 2022 is going to be my breakout year. This was my time where I learned who I was. 2022 is going to be what I introduce myself to the world. And so I wanted to do this episode because, I wanted you guys to know who Mystique Moon was. To the core of me, all right? To the core of me. And then everybody who already know me, know that I'm transitioning, know that I'm going through this spiritual enlightenment and this spiritual journey. I just wanted to break a couple things down, all right? So, that's it. I hope you learned who I was. I hope you got a little bit of insight on, my life, my journey, and what's to come, because there's so much to come. There's so much things that I have not yet even touched the tip of, and I'm extremely excited. And I'm going to take my She Sound Off family with me. I am ever so grateful that you guys come to my channel. You don't even know the half of it, all right? Whew. So that's all I have for you. And make sure you check out past episodes. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notifications so that you can be informed when I have, my episodes coming out. And again, I'm writing my blog. I'm doing my website. So beyond my podcast and my YouTube channel, I'm going to be writing articles. And these articles are going to be they're going to be more exclusive and more in depth. Speaking, podcasting, those are things that's coming from, they're things that I've thought about, but they're kind of coming from the top. When I write, I get so deep. I get so deep when I write, and it's always gonna almost gonna be like bits and pieces of my journal. So you're really gonna be able to like dive deep and to understand the lessons that I've learned. You know, the whole point of She Sound Off is to help uplift, motivate, and guide people that has been through similar situations or that's going through similar situations. Learn that if I came out of it, you can too, okay? And there's more than one way to, what did my mom used to say? There's more than one way to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. All right. I love you guys. I love you, little stars. That's going to be my new intro. All of my podcast followers, listeners, and all of my YouTube subscribers, you guys are my little stars. I love you so much. Okay? Remember, self-preservation is the first law of nature. You have to love you before you can love anything or anybody else in this world. Always remember to put you first. All right? Love you. Peace out.